Marvel Rivals Rank 2.0 is a huge mess. Now, I have watched a few seconds of this guy video, and apparently he's really against the new performance-based rank system, which is really odd to me because I'm pretty positive towards it. Whenever you play well and win, you win more points, and whenever you play well and lose, you lose less points. So to me, it just seems super fair, and I'm really interested to see what he has to say about that.
Marvel Rivals' new ranked mode changes are so bad, they might just kill the game. Just give me a few minutes and I'm gonna tell you why. Hear me out. Performance-based matchmaking and performance-based ranked rewards is a tried concept that has been around for almost as long as we've had competitive multiplayer games. This is normally referred to as skill-based matchmaking or just matchmaking, and while it's gone through a ton of different versions and iterations, it can be summed up along the lines of, if you're performing exceptionally well, especially to get a win, a little hidden number on your profile goes up and your future games get adjusted. Marvel Rivals has had SPMM in ranked and in public matches probably since its release, and maybe even before that. In ranked, if you win a game, you'd get more points, but if you played exceptionally well, like a one above all player in bronze, then you'd be rewarded with way more points. This was even true in Season 1. In Season 2, the weight of this value was adjusted and the weight of your individual performance was increased, and it is very noticeable. And I'm really happy that they did that because now I don't feel crazy when I say that this is completely wrong. If you have a standout game and win, you will be rewarded noticeably more, and if you have a standout game but still lose, the rank loss isn't as severe. Obviously, on the flip side, if you win without contributing enough in the eyes of the system, then you gain less points, and if you lose and your stats are looking bad, then your rank will take a huge hit. Before this patch, after the patch notes had dropped, a lot of people had come to me to ask what I thought about the changes. I expressed my apprehension and I listed all of the flaws with these types of systems and how they really never work out, especially in hero shooters, but even I didn't think it would end up being this bad. And I did a ton of research and I think I have an idea of how it works, and it's really broken. But before we get into that, a quick shout out as usual. The script and research to this video was already available to members of the Otter Dojo, and if you want to get better at Marvel Rivals, attend weekly seminars, group coaching, and community events while improving alongside like-minded gamers, check out the link in the description. There are still some discounted spots left, so don't miss out before we raise the price. But anyways, after feeling some frustration with barely getting enough points to even stay within the top 500, even with a 60 to 70% win rate, and getting absolutely burned with minimal gains and insanely high losses despite having a huge impact, I decided to look a little bit farther. In one of my previous streams, I spent a few hours digging through my own stats and the stats of many other prolific players, such as other pro players, my own zero healing rocket account, and adversely the zero damage rocket account. And by the way, this guy is not having a good time. He's not doing any damage and the system just keeps punishing him for it. And while I can't say that I figured out exactly how the system works, I am very confident that I have a solid idea of how it does. And do note that all of the accounts and games we checked were in about Grandmaster to Celestial, so the top 500 of all players in the world at the moment. If you aren't aware, at these ranks, the gains look very different than in bronze, and a typical win would be in the 20 to 25 point range, whereas in bronze, you could easily see a 50 or higher point gain on a really good win. The first thing that really stood out to me is that for whatever reason, when I kept looking at all these stats, was that if you get SVP on a loss, you lose less points. Significantly less. It's a massive outlier. You could have barely any impact but farm enough final hits and damage or whatever gets you that SVP and get out of that game only losing about 12 to 15 or so points, while your teammates might lose way over 20 or even more. In fact, this was such an outlier across all of the games that it made it take quite a lot longer for me to piece together the rest of the puzzle. Funny enough, on the opposite side of the spectrum, getting an MVP doesn't seem to have that much of an impact, or a very minimal one. Certainly not to the tune of getting a 30 to 40% loss reduction, that's for sure. Having the best...
Well, there is an impact, yeah, it's just like way smaller. I mean, you do get way more points, but not as significant as the points that you're supposed to lose, but then you get SVP and it get like cut by half. Like I had games where I played so well, I got the SVP, we still lost of course, and I lost like 13 or 16 points, and it's ridiculous.
Stats on a losing team and getting SVP is such a huge difference in your lost points that honestly, mathematically, it might be more worth it to go for that SVP if you think it's a loss, rather than trying to flex to a support or something else and start healing and trying to salvage the game.
Yeah, that's actually true. I'm starting to see what he's saying here, and he actually has some really great points. I think he's right. The system right now is rewarding you based on like flat damage or healing, and that is really bad. I think there should be way more stuff going into this metric system. That way they can calculate better, like if you did a great job or not. Because unfortunately, some players don't get healed and they end up dying. And if you're dead, you can't deal damage or heal. And that's why you're being punished by the system. So I completely understand why he's saying that. That's actually a really good point.
I mean, I did it in that one game one time and was hit with a -28. After adjusting for SVPs, that leaves us with a lot of data. The second largest impact to your gains before we dive into the performance seemed to be rank disparity. Now this seems obvious, but it is important to mention. Most games seem to have players within the same cluster of ranks, but with the occasional outliers of up to about 100 points more or 100 points less than the average of those games. A low-ranked player who won the game with average stats would end up gaining significantly more than their teammates, to the tune of about 5 points or so for the same performance. Adversely, a player with over 100 points above the average would gain 5 or so points less for that same performance, assuming there wasn't some weird performance stuff going on in the background, and if they lost, they would take a massive rank nuke, which sometimes cost them all the way up to -30 points. Now, obviously, most games in the world, most games with a rank system do work like this. It's pretty much standard, and it isn't the point of the video. But again, it was another huge thing that got in the way of actually trying to figure out how the gains seem to work. And now that we look past the SVPs, look past the rank disparity, we can start seeing the other trends when it comes to the ranked gains and losses. First and foremost, everything seems to have an impact to your gains. It might have different amounts of impact, but in short, the higher your stat numbers are, the better. It doesn't seem to matter whether your stats are junk stats, as in, for example, dealing damage when you shouldn't, that would just feed support ultimates for no reason, or shooting straight into an enemy support ultimate to pad your own damage. Now, I couldn't prove that this made no difference, but I couldn't see anything suggesting that getting absurdly high amounts of damage actually punishes you. In fact, in this game, where we absolutely stomped this team, their Moon Knight got the most damage in the entire game because he's a Moon Knight. He didn't really do anything else except just get a lot of damage, so it was practically junk damage, and he only lost 12 points. After going through a ton of games, it seems that the stat that most heavily impacts your rank gains is your final hits. When I sorted the players on each team by final hits, it more or less seemed to align with the rank rewards. But
that makes sense. This is, wow, this is actually really bad. I mean, if that's the case, and it seems like it is, that is really bad, because you can just play like Moon Knight and get SVP whenever you see that you're losing, and you're gonna cut your loss by half. And you know what? Like, people are gonna abuse it from now on. Once it's become like public knowledge, because the system is very new, people are going to abuse the hell out of it. You see that you're losing, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna pick Moon Knight, I'm gonna spam damage, and that's it. I'm not gonna even try to win. I'm just gonna cut my losses.
There were some outliers that were a lot more noticeable if they were playing other roles, or there were heavy disparities. For example, second to your final hits, your KDA seems to carry a lot of weight. Other than sorting by final hits, sorting by KDA showed a clear correlation between your amount of kills and assists ratioed against your deaths. I've had healers with 50 KDA and 0 final hits with great gains, and I've had a Wolverine that's went 4 and 5 and lost 29 points despite being almost 200 points lower than the rest of the lobby. Obviously, the latter is a mix of final hits and the KDA, but that's the point. It is still connected somehow.
That's
something
disgusting.
else that seems connected but more loosely is your healing and your damage blocked. Even though these can be junk stats just as easily as they can be valuable stats, since they count towards MVP and we saw what could be pointed towards minimal gains, they are worth bringing up.
Man, so this system just screw up healer players, right? Because healer players don't get last hits usually. Man, that's disgusting. I mean, you do get points for healing, but not as much, it seems like. That just system, oh my god, they just screw up healers. That is insane.
Also saw that doing a lot of damage seems to lead to a higher chance of getting MVP or just getting more ranked points, no matter whether you were a duelist, support, or tank. But I couldn't really establish where it fits in this whole puzzle other than that it does have an impact. Finally, even though this one is impossible to prove, there is a chance that your gains are also impacted by hidden stats, things like time on point or interrupting enemy ultimates, things like that.
Yeah,
I'd argue.
I mean, it is. I wouldn't cross that off the table like this quickly. For sure, there must be some sort of a hidden system. Well, we already know the engagement system exists, and obviously it knows what you're playing, and that is a fact. Now, of course, nobody has really gave us a 100% solid proof, but we all know the engagement system is in the game, and it exists, and it ruins a lot of people's lives, because it just makes us miserable, right? Especially if you're a solo queue player. And this system tracks which heroes you're most likely to play, Vanguard, Strategist, DPS, And yeah, of course, it takes that into consideration. Also, win-loss situation, it tracks everything. We already know that. So the possibility that NetEase considers like payload time and all that stuff into consideration when giving you rank points or rank rewards, yeah, I mean, that's very highly likely of a possibility.
That it looks like getting SVP or MVP does seem to lead to more gains, and doing things that normally would get you either of these seem to be correlated with those gains as well. But since I don't have access to these hidden stats, this part is impossible to prove other than by just going by vibes. What I couldn't determine was whether your stats are compared to a global average, the average to your rank, and whether it is based on your hero or your role. The logical way would be comparing your stats to your specific hero in your specific rank, but I didn't see any consistency between different heroes with the same stats, nor the same heroes with most of the same stats when you compare between different games, so it is really hard to tell. From an outside looking in, it will be very difficult to get a clear picture of what actually matters and what doesn't, other than seeing some specific outliers. So this is just my theory on how it works, and it supports that you always should make sure to focus on yourself and the system. If you're playing a hero that has specific bans, you're actually incentivized to ban your direct counters, even if they aren't actually good bans, just to ensure that you do good. In a performance-based system, if your stats look good, then you will keep climbing. And normally I would say, well, if you just keep winning, it doesn't matter how you perform. But because of how heavy performance is this patch, in this system, in theory, you could have a way below 50% win rate, maybe 30 or 40%. But if you keep getting SVP every game, or you keep getting those stats that the algorithm really wants you to get, then you're gonna keep climbing because you gain that much more on a win than you do on a loss. In the same vein, like in my case, you can have a way above 50% win rate or a 50% win rate overall, but still lose or bleed points over time because you gain that much less than you lose. The issue with the system is that while yes, it will help pushing smurfs out faster, and yes, it will make you feel better about losing when you did the most in your team, these aren't really problems that needed addressing, and ultimately they're just...
Yes, they are. This is just like a weird take to have. Of course it is. Whenever you lose because you had like really bad team, it always feels bad. And if you can make the person that tried his best to feel less worse about being queued up with his team, I mean, that's always a blessing, right? But the thing is, for the most part, it's the fault of the engagement system. And again, I mean, if you take care of the engagement system, you wouldn't need that ranked performance-based system in the first place.
Here to make you feel good. Is that what competitive games are about now? Just making you feel good for no reason? Not to mention that while the system makes smurfs rank up faster, it also makes it much easier to keep throwing games, get the performance-based loss to drop you farther, and smurf that much more easily. The reality of the system is that performance-based gains can't accurately measure your impact in a game, and by increasing their weight, suddenly people will start playing for stats rather than trying to win. People won't flex to off rolls and would rather take losses while playing their best so they lose less ranked points. Anyone who has been...
Well, but people still play for the win. I mean, he makes it kind of sound like people are testing the waters for like the few 10 seconds of the match, and then whenever things go sour, they immediately like, okay, I'm gonna swap to Moon Knight, I'm gonna get that SVP and screw all of you. Like, that's not the case. People are still playing for the win, and people will always try to play for the win. I think it's only true if they realize they lost in like the last round maybe, and then they will try to troll. But I think for the most part, people will still try to play for the win.
Been in real life and gone outside, I've done it like once or twice, knows that these incentive systems do not work. And I guess funny enough, being a gamer, my perfect example is McDonald's. So imagine yourself from McDonald's. They have these cool screens that show that your orders are being made or if they're ready to pick up. Someone higher up, if it's middle or higher management, I wouldn't know, decided they would give rewards for whoever has the fastest kitchen with the fastest delivery time. So what do? Instead of speeding up the kitchen and ramping up production and just becoming more...
They mark it as being finished and then they give it to you like later. Like, I know, it's so common. They do it everywhere, even here.
Efficient. They just tag your order as finished the second your order pops up on the screen. Well, it might still be, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes out. So now you're confused, you're waiting, you're wondering what's happening with your order. You might even go up to the counter and ask what's happening because the screen isn't telling you. And the entire point of having the system to track your order ends up being pointless. The same goes for Marvel Rivals. When you create a system with incentives, then people will always figure out a way to game it, and suddenly the incentives don't matter anymore. They just made everything worse. People are already playing for kills, they're throwing ultimates into fights that are already won just to pad your stats, and avoiding playing the objective or taking risks before they die to it, because they think it will help. And that's even before I release this video. After this video, it'll probably get a whole lot worse before it gets better. So if you want to help spread the message and make it better, I guess share the video and hit the like button and comment your thoughts so, you know, we get the boost in the algorithm. Because if this doesn't get fixed, then the integrity of ranked is ruined. And when ranked doesn't mean anything, the people don't play it. And when you lose your ranked grinders, who are your most dedicated player base, then your game is dead. Or at the very least, it's going to start rotting from the core. We've seen so many games alienating their ranked player base lately, and it's always led to a downward spiral while the community ends up dying from within. Ultimately, an incentive system directly leads to abuse, which ruins the integrity of ranked. And why would you even play ranked if it has no integrity? It can, in theory, be designed in ways where it can't game, but that would probably need thousands of points of entry and data and exceptions and rules.
Well, I believe they can do that. I mean, the game is big enough and popular enough for them to actually collect all the data. And let's not pretend like this is not NetEase. Of course, they have the capacity and meanings to do that. Like, they can absolutely do that. We already know they're doing it with the engagement system. It's a very known thing. So I believe they can improve this system. I don't think it needs to be abolished, but it definitely needs to have some more requirements that, you know, they need to track to see if you're playing well or not.
Rather than just comparing your stats to one another, and it's not there now. And
I think having, like, tracking how much time you're idle by without doing anything at a certain location where enemies fight, and not when you're walking from spawn, for example. I think taking that into consideration is very, very good. If they see that you're constantly healing, I don't know, doing damage or trying to shoot someone, that's why I'm saying there need to be like enemies nearby to calculate. I think if that will go into consideration, that would be great.
I don't think it'll be there.
I'm pretty sure they can
ever.
do that.
The current system literally screws over team players. If I, Emma, try to peel my backline, or I use my shield to cut off their healers, then I don't deal damage. I don't even get a high amount of damage blocked because I'm just cutting off the healers. It results in kills, but I don't get credit for it. There's no stat for blocked healing, so all of my impact that leads to wins isn't even attributed to me. Taking soft space or pressuring enemies without damage also doesn't count. You can't track it, so they just don't.
He's absolutely right, and I can say this as a Black Panther player. There are a lot of times where like people will endlessly chase you around the map, and at some point you're like, okay, keep chasing me, and you constantly make them troll around the map and trying to find you. And, you know, they ended up doing nothing. You take like 1 or 2 people out of the fight by passively just being out there and, you know, hiding from them. Now, this doesn't count for the system. The system sees this as you doing nothing. And I actually had it happen to me like, like 2 or 3 days ago whenever I play Black Panther. It happens a lot. If you play like Spidey and Black Panther, you already know that. You can make a lot of people just randomly chase you for like the entire match. And yeah, I mean, that's really bad in this current system. He's absolutely right.
Had so many games where I have to leave the front line and stop doing damage to help my supports with the flankers. And as I keep chasing the flankers or pressuring them off, I can feel my rank points dropping real time because I'm not padding my stats or my damage, even though I'm keeping my supports alive. They're getting ranked points from me keeping them alive, but I'm losing them because I'm not padding my stats. And it's also worth noting that doing a lot of damage can be good on paper, but we've gone over this. If all of that damage is on the tanks or into shields or whatever, and you already have your ultimate, and it leads to no kills with enemy supports just farming their own ults off of that damage, then you're actually throwing. But according to the system, you're carrying, you have a lot of damage. Here's another 10 rank points on us. The game has been reduced to the most surface level stats and incentivizes you to do more damage, to overextend, to take bad poke just so you get more points. It's oversimplified the game, and now bad players get extra points by shooting shields and tanks because they lack the understanding of how these games should be played. And if left unchecked, the game will start falling off. I'm gonna be extreme about this. It might actually die. And that's because a lot of developers make the mistake of ignoring their most dedicated players. They're ranked grinders who spend hours a week or even a day playing the game to get better or get that rank. They play ranked because it matters and because they want that shiny badge. If a rank loses value, then they stop playing and they move on to something else that does have a good rank system. Without the dedicated rank grinders making up the core player base, you only have casuals. The problem with casuals is that, yeah, there's a lot of them, and they probably spend a lot of money, but they always leave when something better comes along. There are plenty of examples of developers ruining their own games for the ranked players in favor of a more casual approach, and my favorite might be the finals, which we have covered a lot. And in Season 3, after people were criticizing the rank system to do a full overhaul because it had a lot of issues, they decided to change their main rank system from cash out, which was the main main mode of the entire game, really the only reason you would play the finals, to Terminal Attack, a 5v5, I believe, tactical shooter style game mode. It was a whole different game mode. They just decided rank was something completely else. In Marvel Rivals terms, it would be like if for one season, they just randomly decided to remove the entire rank system the way we know it, and the next season you had to play Doom matches or, I don't know, Jeff's Winter Splash game mode to get your rank. Understandably, this didn't do very well, and the game lost the majority of their competitive player base come the Season 3 launch. After the initial hype, the game lost about 25% of its player base, who then came back in Season 4 when the real ranked returned. But the finals is an incredibly casual game, and it has a core dedicated player base, so who knows how much of a drop you'd see for Marvel Rivals if you try the same stunt. But one thing is for certain, if you estrange your ranked players, then you lose a huge chunk of your players. Maybe a smaller number of them, but the ones putting in the real hours grinding the game out every day, the people that will keep playing even if Overwatch releases a new patch where Tracer is wearing a bikini. Now, this wouldn't be that good of a video if I just ragged on the one bad system and didn't offer any alternatives.
There it
I
is.
like Marvel Rivals. It's a good game. But if ranked keeps going this way, it'll just fall off completely once people realize how meaningless ranked is turning out to be. I am honestly really early to this issue, though some pro players like Lion Pro, a support main and absolute banger of a player, agrees with me that it is not working properly at all. I already said that the performance-based gains were a problem before they upped the weight of them, and they probably had a big impact in why ranked was so unbalanced in the previous season. It's definitely much worse this time around, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this season, it's gonna be several times worse than the end of season 1.5 was. My solution is really simple. Reverting it just isn't enough. I'm gonna suggest something extreme, but really simple. Remove those performance-based gains entirely. The only thing that should matter is whether you win or whether you lose. If you win a ton of games in a row, then you could be gradually tested in higher and higher lobbies and get rewarded from the rank disparity because you're doing better in a higher rank. But there's no point in making it more complicated because you can't accurately measure one's impact in any number. There's so many data points, and if you just miss one of them, it's immediately invalid and it screws over a certain type of players.
So this is where I disagree with him. Okay, I'm gonna let him finish.
Hold
on, I'm gonna let you finish.
You can be the in-game leader in a game, doing 0 damage, 0 healing, 0 impact, other than literally shot calling your team to a win, and you'll lose all your points because the system doesn't measure your impact as a leader. This current system and performance-based gain systems are terrible.
Yeah, so he's absolutely right. He had some really great points there. And I will say this, we disagree on the method you need to deal with the system. He said just completely abolish the system. I'm saying you can improve it, and you should, because I believe NetEase has the resources to do so. They already have the data, and of course, I've said this like a million times, we know they have it because we have the engagement system in the game. So we know NetEase is tracking everything, including which heroes you play, and which you're more likely to pick, all that stuff. We already know that, it's a fact. Now, you can tell me that NetEase can build a system that knows if you're doing well in a game, not based on like flat metrics, right, such as damage, healing, and damage soaked, right, damage blocked. So I completely believe in NetEase that they're capable of pulling off such a system, and that's where we differ. But the points he made are all correct. They're factually right, and he's absolutely right. This was a great video, and unfortunately, he just speaking the truth, and Adam Warlock players just suffer, man, like we've seen in the example he gave. Strategists in general, I think, will take the worst out of the system because they'll earn way less points than they should have, and really high DPS characters just earning points, man, like Punishers, like the Punishers, the Moon Knights players, they're gonna earn the most out of the system. So I definitely think that NetEase should improve it. Or for the meantime, you know, I'd have no problem if they want to remove it in the meantime while they're upgrading it, but I will like to see it returned because I think it's very good whenever you lose a game because you have a bad teammates, just to make sure that you lose less points and other people that play bad lose more points, because that will make people stay in the rank they deserve or go up to the rank they deserve. And I think that's very fair. Is it hard to pull off? I can't really tell you. I'm not a developer. But I believe NetEase can pull it off. So that's pretty much the only difference between me and him. I think everything he said was absolutely factually right. And great video. I'm gonna link it in the description below so you guys can watch it for yourself and give it a like. But yeah, make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But once again, that's all for now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.